Today's date is March 31st, Tuesday, March 31st. This is the Aquarist podcast. I'm your host, Randy Reed. This episode is sponsored by Aquarium Co-op. And for a special sponsorship kind of promotion, we have none other than Master Breeder Dean. Sorry, I haven't had enough coffee this morning. Dean Tweeddale. So Dean, what are your top 3 favorite products at Aquarium Co-op and why?
My top 3 favorite products?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Okay, so the first one is products is the nano food.
Okay.
Or maybe let's go back. It's the extreme food.
The extreme food line?
The extreme food line. This is actually a food line that I Corey knew I had been using the nano pellets, or the micro nano pellets, whatever they're called.
Yeah, nano, extreme nano.
Extreme nano for a long time, and I kept telling him, I said, you got to get in touch with them, you got to get in touch with them. But you guys are the ones that made them switch the krill flakes to freshwater food.
We did, yeah. Their marketing was a little bit different for that, and yeah, one of our recommendations to them, and our recommendations, Corey's recommendation, was that this krill flake is basically what we are looking for. Like we've been looking to get intimate, for lack of a better word, with a fish food manufacturer, and really have some premium offerings for Aquarium Co-op customers for food. And their krill flake was actually a marine flake, right? With krill, basically.
With krill base, yeah.
And so we got a bunch of samples from them. And one of the foods that we had tried out and it kind of initially had our eye on was this krill flake. And both Corey and I, our testing experience was just like phenomenal. Everything crushed this food. We had sent some to Jimmy as well. He loved it. I loved the texture of it. But yeah, an absolutely solid food. And I would say I was kind of hesitant to initially even go down this path with them because I had never heard of them. But when Corey was saying, "Oh yeah, Dean really likes it," I'm like, well, if Dean likes it, can't be too bad then. It's probably got to be some pretty good stuff.
Right, and it is. It's and I'm really happy. I had never used the krill flakes before. Mm-hmm. I was kind of set on the pellets, and the krill flakes are amazing. Everything in the fish room will take them.
Yep. Well, my whole claim to fame for them is that the wild discus, when I brought them back from Peru, they would only eat live blackworms. They wouldn't touch frozen bloodworms. They wouldn't touch any other prepared food.
But they'd eat the krill flakes.
But they crushed the krill flake, yeah. And that was so it was so relieving that they would actually eat, a prepared food that was very balanced, right? And that was going to be a good staple diet for them.
Well, and see, that's one of the things when you're bringing back wild fish is getting them to eat it first. Mm-hmm. We go through the whole med process and all that, but you still got to get them. I mean, they haven't really eaten well for about 2 weeks, I would say.
Yeah.
So getting protein back in them, and the krill flakes. I mean, you smell them. They smell good.
They do smell pretty good.
You know, and actually, even the nano pellets smell really good. You know, so.
And the nano, actually, we've done a little bit of a label redesign. So before with the nano pellets, they had a very up close picture of a jaguar cichlid surrounded by fry, and it's a really cool picture. But it almost looks like air bubbles. And so, just knowing that this is a great food for fry, knowing it's a great food for microfish, we kind of had them, we really took some time to redesign the label, pick different fish, went through probably a month or so of iterations. So we did that with the community pellets, which are rebranded 1.5 millimeter sinking and floating pellets. We did that with nano, and we actually did that with krill as well. So we really, wanted to make sure that, if somebody walked into a retail store, they walked into Aquarium Co-op and they saw these foods, the fish on there were very representative of
what you're feeding them.
Of what you're feeding them, yeah. Right. And, sometimes brands just kind of throw whatever looks good on there, but it was really, for us, it was, well, will that fish actually eat it?
Yeah.
And so with some of the sample foods and foods we already had, was, hey, Robert, retail store, feed some CPDs.
Right.
Feed these celestial pearl danos.
Right.
See if they'll eat it. Feed the
guppies, whatever.
Feed guppies. Feed like all this stuff that if we're gonna represent it on the label, like the fish better eat that food. So Product number 2. So
product number 2 would be sponge filters. I mean, you just been in the fish room. Every filter in there is a sponge filter. Even the canisters are stacked with sponges. Mm-hmm. Easy to clean, easy to use. Harbor the necessary bacteria to keep the tank stable. Mm-hmm. I've used sponge filters for, 100 years now, so something like that.
Yeah.
And now you've got your own ones. The green is actually more aesthetic than most of the other ones.
It is, and then actually when Corey did the tour of my fish room, the fact that the previous brand we used to carry with the clear uplift tube had that, such visible algae on it.
Right.
And it's, when you compare it to a tank right next to it that also has algae, green uplift tube, green base, you don't even really notice it. Like it just ends up being this, like you're saying, an aesthetically pleasing look.
Right.
My favorite feature of those sponge filters is the InstaSync. Is the instant sink to the bottom of the tank,
right.
and they don't flow back
right.
up.
Yeah.
I can't tell you, when I first set that fish room up and
right.
I bought, the generic 12-pack off of Amazon, every single one of those, it was weeks. Yeah. It was weeks of me going into the fish room, squeezing, because these were the large ones. These
right.
were the large sponge filters, so there's a massive amount of air.
Yeah.
And you're just squeezing the crud out of this 40, 50 PPI foam, where ours is, I believe off the top of my head, 20 PPI.
Something like that.
And it just makes a world of difference. And you're still getting so much space for beneficial bacteria that you don't even have to go, crazy 40 PPI or 50 PPI.
No. So that would be the number 2. Man, there's so many other cool products though. But I would say the third product is the Stingray lights. Now, the reason I say that, I've been asked about 10 times in the last 2 weeks about lights for a fish room. And I know that Corey, we've just switched all of his tanks back to Stingrays.
Really?
Yep. All of my tanks in the fish room are lit by Stingrays. The tanks outside of the fish room have bigger, more powerful lights on them. But
well, those are more display, trying to grow more plants in them,
But for fish room, for fish tanks, although a Stingray will grow plants really well, and I do want to make a caveat there. I'm talking about the old style Stingray, the original, not the new one,
not the two,
the two, right? They're thin, they're black, so they blend in really well. If you want to mount them, they're easy to mount. Won't really talk about it, but in my case, I have dimmed them all. It voids the manufacturer warranty. Sorry, manufacturer. but it's for my case, it's a plus side because it cuts down on algae.
Yeah, and that was actually when they launched the Stingray 2, and they were sending us the initial promotional material. Hey, do you want to see some samples? Kind of looking at the specs, we're like, no, like we want to stick with the original Stingray.
Yeah.
And we had to really make sure and hit them up over a couple of emails, like, please make sure you're going to continue to make the Stingray. Right. Like, don't just put all your eggs in this one basket. Right. We will not carry the Stingray 2. Right. Like, we only want to carry the Stingray. And that thing, knock on wood, but the ones that I have, I think
they're solid.
Like half of my tanks, I think, might be on Stingrays in the fish room, but they are absolutely solid. Yeah. I have one on my son's 10-gallon in his room, his betta tank, and that thing absolutely will grow plants to the point where it will grow algae too.
Yes,
like
it will. It will.
Maybe on a deeper 75, and you're really trying to go high tech. Maybe the Stingray is not the best application, but I think probably 80% of the aquarists out there can get a Stingray and be super happy. And I was just actually helping to pack yesterday in the warehouse, and a lot of Stingrays going out the door. Yeah. It is a very popular light, and I just don't think it doesn't have the sexy app, it doesn't have all these sexy features, but it's a solid light.
Yeah, and if you don't need all that other stuff, for your first LED light, it's the one to get. Yeah. So
this has easily been the longest promotional sponsorship intro for a podcast episode. Oh, yes. We hit like 8 minutes just talking about sponsorship, but that's all right. So
and we haven't even talked about the little water pump or the air pump.
Oh, the Nano? Well, we'll save that for next time. Okay. So let's see here. So everybody, to recap, Dean's recommendations from Aquarium Co-op. So aquariumcoop.com, aquariumcoop.com. The Extreme Food lineup, solid. Born on a farm, born on an amazing Florida fish farm.
That's right.
I think that video has gotten like 1.3 million views now.
That's absolutely right.
I love reminding Corey of that one. But granted, it's Jimmy's editing. Yeah. I mean, it's just a solid. He did such a great job with that. Number 2 was Aquarium Co-op sponge filters, and number 3 was what we just talked about, Stingray lights. Yep. Oh, man, I actually just drew a blank there. All right, so Mr. Dean Tweeddale, master breeder, this would be your third time as a guest on the podcast.
Third time. But the second time was a group one.
The second time was a group one. That was in Iquitos, Peru, in my hotel room, which was pretty awesome. And that was actually an episode that almost didn't happen because of the audio quality. So luckily, Corey was holding an audio unit, and
that's right.
we were able to. I mean, he sounded obviously great, but there was just enough of you and I on there to actually make it a doable episode. So that almost got lost to the to the memory card, and never would have seen the light of day. So yeah, this would be episode number 3 with Dean.
Yep.
There is really no rhyme or reason of what we're going to talk about. I just came over here. I've got some errands to run for work, but I needed to drop some stuff off to you and check out the fish room. So what is going on in the fish room? What's new?
There's tons of stuff going on in the fish room. So as most people out there would know, we're basically, for lack of better words, quarantined to home right now. What? Are we 6 feet apart?
I think we are.
I think we are.
I think we can fit a leatherback turtle was the most, or an arapaima. I think an arapaima can fit between us, yeah.
So it's a time right now where you got to be careful because you don't know. I mean, the biggest part of all this is we don't know.
Yeah.
It's not what we do know, it's what we don't know. And so that's been keeping a lot of people at home. And in my case, I'm stuck here in Seattle. My wife's stuck in San Francisco. That doesn't make it fun, but I have been able to do a lot more stuff around the fish room, the house, because you're basically stuck here all the time. So tanks are all looking clean, except for that one rack that's coming. The fish are all breeding like crazy. I've got baby wild discus.
I was so excited to see those.
Yeah, those are about 2.5 weeks old now, and I haven't actually posted those because sometimes you post the fish spawning and then they ate the eggs the next day.
It's
it's kismet or whatever you call that.
It's the Madden curse. So you're familiar with the Madden curse?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
So for those not familiar with the Madden curse, it's basically Madden is like one of the most popular video game franchises for the NFL for football. And the way it goes is whatever NFL star makes the cover of the Madden game, something bad happens to them the next season. They get injured or something. And so I completely I feel you on that one.
So there is this magic. Supposedly this magic 30-day thing for baby discus that you have to get them past the 30 days.
Wild or domestic? Or both?
All of them.
All of them.
All of them. And I think it's mythical. Other people think it's very important. But so baby discus, baby black rams, tons of baby angels, gold rams.
Baby Shodan's high puffers.
Oh yeah, I forgot about that. Yeah. That's recent. And are those the teeniest fish you've ever seen?
They're incredibly small, and what's great is you can still kind of see that they're like bulbous.
A puffer shape.
Yeah, so it's going to grow into like this little puffer. Yeah. And one thing that I was asking you, so it sounds like there might be a misconception, or maybe it was a different species, but I had heard that from a puffer expert over in Europe that they're very sensitive to light, so very photosensitive. And that really hasn't been your experience with these.
But mine are only, less than a week old.
Well, and I believe that was a really sensitive period, though, from basically the moment of incubation to them being a couple weeks old. They're very photosensitive, but so far, not so much.
They're swimming around. Yeah. I'm feeding them green water paramecium right now.
We think they're eating.
You can't tell. I mean, they're so small.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't even have a magnifying glass that I can actually see their mouths.
And by size comparison, so my experience with really, really small fish and actually just pulled mops for them would be rainbow fish, right? So rainbow fish, incredibly, incredibly small fry. Right. You basically have to feed them like a 50 micron golden pearl for at least a good week until they put on enough size to feed baby brine shrimp. Now, do you know by comparison how large a paramecium is compared to a nugget of 50 micron golden pearl? Or are they almost on the same page?
The paramecium
it's probably smaller, I would
will
imagine.
get caught in a 10 micron sieve.
Okay.
So they're about, I believe, 25 microns.
Wow.
They're tiny.
So at least half the size of a 50 micron.
Or smaller, yeah.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, it basically looks like dust in the water.
Yeah.
When you've got a cloud of it. And then green water, I believe, is even smaller than that because then you're talking about single cell algae and stuff like that. So, this is my first experience with them. I'm kind of relying on other people's experience. I give the shout out to Preston. These fish are from him.
Podcast alumni.
Yep, yeah. He is a podcast alumni. And, I've been in contact with him several times about, what am I doing right? What am I doing wrong? All of this. So I will say eventually I'm going to figure it out. Even if this first spawned, this is the first time I actually took the eggs away. They've spawned several times before that, but I haven't taken the eggs out, or I haven't actually seen the eggs. Because a lot of it was, people would tell me they're tiny, tiny eggs. Well, I spawned a lot of fish with small eggs, like bettas, for example. Those are teeny tiny fry. These are smaller than betta fry. Yeah. So that's a tiny egg. Yeah. And I would say rainbows are twice the size. Okay.
Wow. So what did they just scatter? Did they lay them on like leaves? Like where do they deposit the eggs?
They just scatter. Yeah. And then basically you vacuum them up, hopefully get a bunch of eggs and hatch them. So I'm guessing there's probably 100 or more fry in there right now.
Now, when you vacuumed them up, the eggs up, did you go straight to the current container that they're in?
No.
Or did you do
I went into a jar.
What I call a kimchi jar. So
yeah.
I'm half Korean. It's the that's the giant kimchi jar.
Yeah, I went into a jar.
Methylene blue.
Little bit of methylene blue. Yeah. Some fish you have to be careful with. Too much methylene blue is also going to be detrimental.
I've heard, I think I talked to Bentley, and he said that your strategy for methylene blue is basically take a pipette, put it in your methylene blue, lift it up, put that into the water,
right.
Don't squeeze anything, and just remove it.
Yeah.
So like whatever.
So it's just enough. Yeah.
Very, very light blue, like incredibly light blue tint.
Right. And then, I bet you go with angelfish eggs, you can put 20 drops in a gallon, and they'll all hatch. But what I also do is as soon as those eggs start eyeing up, then they're a viable egg. Change out some of the water. So you're reducing the dose of the methylene blue. Right. Because once you're past the stage where the eggs are going to fungus, you don't have to worry about it. Interesting thing though is the puffer eggs, not one fungused.
Wow.
Not one.
So you had a couple hundred?
I think there's maybe 100, 150 in there.
Not one fungus.
I'm not expecting all of them to live, obviously. You never can. But not one egg fungused.
Wow.
There was 2 eggs that didn't hatch, but no fungus.
Did it just stay? So it just stayed like what, hard white?
Yeah.
Okay.
It turned white. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So.
Impressive. And to go back to the baby discus, the baby wild discus, the photo that you posted to Instagram and seeing them in person, one thing that really caught my attention was how orange they were. And looking at it, I'm like, did Dean go a la Jimmy and like bump up some color values? But they look like they're just naturally full of brine shrimp.
They're super, super orange.
Yeah, the eggs were super orange.
And that actually is something that has surprised me also, because so I used to have 23 pairs of discus going, or maybe it was 21 pairs of discus going.
All designer strains, domestic strains, right?
Yeah. And this is years ago, and I don't remember the eggs being so amber colored. But none of those discus were actually wild, like in our case, wild right from the river discus. So these ones, the eggs are so amber colored. It's almost like a deep amber ale, that color, and they're gorgeous. I mean,
you would think they were full of baby brine shrimp, like
already,
a really rich baby brine shrimp. Yeah.
Now, could that be from the foods? Maybe. They do eat the krill, the krill flakes. They do eat some freeze-dried blackworms that are supplemented with some color enhancers. Or is it just because the strain, where they come from the wild?
Yeah.
Don't know.
I mean, the parents are kind of orange, It's that's kind of their natural, base color.
I love that color too.
Yeah.
That is just insanely beautiful color.
Yeah.
So, yeah. And they get the 9 legitimate vertical stripes that Discus have. I mean, you see so many Discus now where they're all broken up or there's no stripes. When they get in their breeding color, those 9 stripes come in. It's really cool. So
Yeah, and so what else I really liked and what I'm gonna store away from my own breeding journey is I felt actually kind of proud that, granted I had a 50-50 chance, but I was able to identify just by the finnage, kind of the sharpness of that back, dorsal fin, or no, not the dorsal. The dorsal and the dorsal and the anal. Yeah.
Fin, right.
So the male's going to have that sharper point. Typically, we'll have kind of that sharper point. A
little bit sharper, right.
Female's a little bit more dull. I had told you before, probably about 2 months ago, I pulled what I thought to be a male-female from my wild Discus, like really robust, probably 2 of the bigger ones in there. Seemed like they were kind of buddy-buddy. One seemed more aggressive, chasing off other Discus, and I was like, maybe that's a pair. Put them in their own 20 high. Everything was hunky-dory for a couple weeks, and then I noticed that male was being a little bit more aggressive with the other one, and so I wasn't sure if I actually did get a male-female pair or if they just weren't ready. And so, God, like, having these fish, it's almost, it's like when I was golfing, right? I was never a good golfer, but when I used expensive golf balls, I played terribly. When I used cheap Kmart golf balls, Cougar brand, if anybody golfer out there knows Cougar brand, they're like free when you walk into Kmart.
Right.
I would play so much better, and I feel the same way with these fish. Right, like I feel like they're just so fragile, and I don't want to do anything to potentially jeopardize their health, and so I'm like, all right, let's just put these back in with the main colony, and so I'm kind of gun shy, because these things, like, there's so much of an attachment to them now. The fact that I brought them back from Peru, and I've just invested so much into them of time and effort. That I don't want anything to happen to them. Not that I want anything to happen to any of my other fish.
Yeah, you don't.
But there's just something so special about that.
Yeah, more special. And like I said, the ones that are spawning now are the ones like I brought back 3 years ago. So when we brought them back 3 years ago, they were about how yours were when you brought them back a year ago. And I think that the number one thing that a lot of people don't understand is you have to have patience.
Yeah.
And that goes with the pleco breeding also.
Yeah.
There's a lot of people that are going to get these fish and they want them spawning tomorrow. And so they're going to buy a pair or they're going to buy this. And
do you think that's the danger of kind of, while I think it's an amazing series and I think it's great for people, but the breeding for profit that's kind of out there? Co-op's done a great job with it, but a lot of other people are out there with their own breeding for profit series.
Right.
Do you think that some of that has to do with it, where I'm gonna get these really expensive, I'm gonna drop an entire paycheck on some zebra plecos, and these things are gonna make me money, right? Where it's,
well, like what I've had those zebra plecos now, the ones I currently have for, she's 3+ years, and I've got 4 babies that have been viable or that are growing.
And you had a male-female caved up too. That was really cool to see.
Yeah, today I do. Yeah, so hopefully I'll have more eggs. Yeah. But again, that's a fish that they're only going to lay maybe 20 eggs.
Wow.
So it's not like you're going to get a brood. You're going to get 15, 20 babies.
Right. And then you may have to cull.
And you might,
You might have to cull some of that too.
You don't even know that, right? Yeah. So, but no, the whole breeding for profit, I think a lot, I hate to say it, but I think a lot of it is fallacy.
Yeah.
Because if you're really breeding for profit, okay, who's paying your electric bill? Who's paying your water bill? Did you include your fish food?
Yeah.
Did you include your time?
So here's a funny one, right? I live probably a 30-minute drive from the co-op. I have a full-size truck, and if I'm going to transport my son with me, he's only ever going to go in the big vehicles, right? Like I very much want my kids to be protected. So even if I were breeding for profit, when I make a weekend run to the co-op to drop off fish, I'm spending at least $15 in gas.
On gas, right.
Granted, oil's dropping a little bit right now, but we're still at like $2.89 here in Washington.
Yeah, we're not cheap.
We are not cheap. We've got the premium California blend. We got all the taxes tacked onto our gas. So nonetheless, like the transportation of your vehicle to and from the fish store, wherever you're going to take them, like I just thought of that one day. I'm like, man, I'm probably dropping $10 just to go and hang out at the co-op and drop some fish off.
Exactly.
And I don't even sell my fish at the co-op. Like I get so much. I said this in the fish tour video that I get so much free stuff and samples and all this stuff that I don't even care. Like I'm at the point now where I I try to emulate you as much as possible. Like I think my niche in the hobby is like, yes, I want to have a beautiful planted display tank, but I really want to specialize and make a mark and do a lot of specialized breeding. And so I
Right.
look to you for a lot of inspiration. And so I'm at a point now where if I can breed these things, and as long as I can offload them somewhere, they're going to go to a good home and they're going to support my place of employment. Like I'm perfectly fine. So I'm not even at the point where I need to try to make money or
Right.
anything.
Right.
We're obviously in a different boat in that situation, but yeah. So that's
So I think the key is, okay, are you breeding them for profit, or like in my case, it's like
breed to cover expenses.
if you cover if you cover your expenses, or if it's a rare fish and you can get it spread around with other people.
The cares, the gadids, like all those fish. Yeah.
I mean that was the whole premise, and sorry, Corey, in advance, but that was the whole premise of getting Jimmy to bring me a couple pairs of those Vienna guppies a while ago. Actually when he was still here, is because I knew that Corey was going to be traveling. He wasn't going to have time to propagate them.
Sure.
And even to propagate guppies, you got to separate the parents and the fry. You got to grow the fry up so that they have a chance of. Because the parents will eat some of them. They won't eat all of them, but they will eat some.
Well, those ones are a little bit. That Vienna guppy is a little bit more notorious, right? For
Yes.
prey. Yeah.
Yeah, a little bit.
Where do you think that comes from?
I just think it.
Like, why do some strains of guppy, seem to be perfectly fine?
Okay,
or?
if you think about it, the Vienna guppy's short tail, they can move faster.
Oh.
A long tail fish can't move as fast, so maybe they're not going to catch as many as the babies.
So these longer, so like a Moscow or those Delta tails, they're kind of handicapped, or a Dumbo ear.
A Dumbo ear is really slow.
They would want to crush their young. They're just a little bit slower.
Right. So that was the whole thing where we took them so that I knew I could give Corey back a bunch of them.
And you've done obviously a fantastic job with them.
So now he's got one of his totes full of them. So that's been a positive outcome of all of that.
Yeah. Well, because we're at a point now where if we actually weren't just curbside only at co-op at the retail store, you could be bringing in
tons of fish.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, I have. We've already talked. I've talked to Corey last time he was here. I've got the angelfish ready to go, both varieties, the super red kois and the Philippine blues. The guppies, a couple different varieties of guppies.
You had the leer tail. You had those beautiful, like iridescent-y, multicolored leer tail.
Yep. Those are the orange green neon lyre tails.
Oh, there you go.
Something like that. I can't remember what they're called.
Have you? I'm sure you are probably more versed in it than I am. But when I go on these angelfish, Facebook groups and whatnot, and you see like how into the weeds with it's a this that's recessive for this and da. Like they go so crazy into the terms, and I'm sure Discus and betas and all that. But like you can go so far into the phenotype, descriptive names and whatnot, that in guppies the same way.
Yeah, I think angelfish and discus are probably two of the worst because, if Joe Breeder out there has, let's just be a little, I don't know what the right word, but say he has a black and a red discus and he breeds them, then he's going to call them a black, red, super jumbo, whatever, And the thing is, they're mutts. It's not a strain. You don't develop.
They're not fixed.
It's not fixed.
Yeah.
It's not a strain until you've probably bred it for 5 or 6 generations.
Have you fixed the strain? Have you made your own?
Well, the red koi ones, we originally got them as koi angels through the co-op, and I have been working on. So the koi angel had red, white, and black. So I've been working on them for now, I think, going on 4, maybe even 5 years.
To really pull the red out,
To
right?
pull the red out and get the white out, and so just red and black. That's what I've been trying to do, and it's getting better and better each generation. But if you think about it, you only get maybe 2 generations a year, because it's usually 8 or 9 months before they're mature enough to breed. So, you got to, and I can't keep 100 fry. I pick the fry when they're dime size, the ones I'm going to keep, and at some point you run out of tank space to keep all that stuff.
So if you get to a point where you are able to successfully have offspring that are just the red and black as you want it, white is completely removed, would you then kind of give it another name?
Yeah.
And would we, okay.
Yep.
And is that something that, because I think in my head, making my own strain of like any type of fish isn't exactly super high up on the list. Like there's again, this is a multifaceted hobby. Some people are incredibly into that. That for me just isn't, it's not really something that I want to do right now, or maybe not even in the future. But for you, is that?
Well, and you got to realize that could end with 1 2-week power outage, which we could have around here anytime, So, with, the red koi angels, that's just one of the lucky ones that I've been working with. I haven't had any major problems. I am experiencing a lower hatch rate now, but I think that's from inbreeding. So I've got, like, right now I'm bringing some black in.
And by bringing black in from a completely
different angel.
Okay.
Yeah.
So how does that work out, right? So I've had people give suggestions of, take a wild angel, mix it back in.
Right.
What if you were to do something like that? What would you expect your offering? Do I need to bust out my Punnett square and like?
Kind of.
Okay.
A little bit.
What would you expect if you take one of your red black koi angels and you mix in
a more black?
A more black non-koi angel variety. What would you expect the offspring to be?
I would probably end up with, technically I'm going to end up with 25% black, 25 or 50% red black, and 25% more red.
Okay, and then
you want to take the best ones out of those.
Out of which group? The 50%?
The red? Of the 50%.
Okay.
Yeah, because or the red and those two groups, But at the same time, angelfish always sell. Mm-hmm. I've never been in a store that had enough angelfish.
Does it ever surprise you how many people out there actually keep fish?
Yeah.
You've been in this.
It's a bunch.
You've been in this for decades and decades and decades, and this is a hobby that has obviously weathered economic depressions and all sorts of stuff like that, recessions and whatnot. It will weather coronavirus.
It will.
A lot of stuff will, but it's just always mind-boggling that how many people actually keep aquariums.
Right. It could be just one aquarium.
Sure.
It could be a fishbowl on the counter. Nano tanks are extremely popular.
Hopefully
right
not
now.
the angel tank in the fishbowl, but
that's true.
Yeah.
Yeah. But the fish that always sell are, guppies, angels, rams, discus, corridors actually are always selling. Breeding some of those is part of having the fish room, and making it work for yourself.
Yeah. I've got people know that I like to play things close to the chest until I'm ready to reveal. But per Corey's recommendation, I've actually got a corridor species that I'll be working with. I've got those coming in actually on Thursday. Mm-hmm. And by working with, just basically breeding en masse for the co-op, and then a killifish.
Oh, nice.
So I've got the killifish eggs showed up yesterday. There's going to be a 6-7 week incubation period.
Yep.
We'll see how that goes, and hopefully, I've got some good success stories and whatnot to share with that. Because I'm retooling the fish room where I sent you guys the pictures where I had on one bottom row 2 20s side by side with 2 10s on the end cap of a 77-inch Gladiator rack.
Something like that, yeah.
So, knowing that I need more capacity, I took those 2 20s, moved them end on end, and then incorporated 2 more that I had in the shed. And part of that was, doing a little DIY, making things happen. I took clear polycarbonate from Home Depot, cut squares, took aquarium safe silicone, and I basically had to patch that hole where the old overflow used to be, right? Because it was in the long side of the tank.
Yeah.
So I had to patch that, had to repaint the other sides, and then drill a new hole, make all new tops. So thank you to you that I actually had the roofing material.
That's right.
So because I picked it up like sometime last year.
Yeah, it was last year.
Yep. And a couple days ago, I made the new roof, the new lids. I am gonna play around. I've got a group of the corridors, 12 of them. 6 I'll put in one of the 20 highs with sand, and then 6 I'm going to put bare bottom.
Yep.
And I'm just going to grow them up. I'm going to feed them the same, and I'm going to see if that sand, if that does anything else to promote. I'll probably play around by introducing guppies in there, because Eric Brodrock, I think, was saying that, you know, those pheromones, when those are in those could potentially help to kick the corridors into high gear. Yeah, so you know, that's something that's you know, added. I think every once in a while you kind of need to be reinvigorated.
Right.
And I think these are some projects that are reinvigorating me, you know, on the breeding side of things.
Well, and it gives you more than one focus. So I mean, if you go in your fish room and you only have one focus, then you can get bored.
Do you know how giddy I got? I haven't shared this with you yet, but I was doing something at the retail store, doing something for work, and this couple, they were, you know, just perusing, looking at fish, and one of the fish they ended up taking home was a super red bristlenose.
Nice.
Who bred that super red bristlenose?
You did, right?
I did,
Yeah.
and I didn't say anything, but I'm just sitting there, and I just internally had the biggest smile.
Yeah.
You know, and again, that's not a fish that I made any money on, you know,
Right.
but it was just so cool knowing that those people were going to take home a super red that I bred.
Yeah.
And if people really knew the story, those super reds actually came from Corey. So just like with the Vienna guppies,
Right.
he's traveling too much.
Right.
I took the male female. I still have them. And all the super reds that I have are from those
that
original
pair.
two
Right.
pair. Yeah. And they're still kicking out fry. And yeah, just, you know, so knowing that if people knew that they came from me, that's kind of a cool story. But then knowing that they came from Corey as well,
Right.
like 80% of the super reds in the co-op are probably from me right now. Albinos are going to be mixed, so a lot of people are bringing in albinos.
Right.
Yeah, but I think it's just fun. Like, it's just something really cool to know that somebody like saw of the entire wall, right? Of all the tanks that we have in the co-op,
They spot those.
they spot these and they're like, yeah, I'm going to take one of those. You
Nice.
know, and that's
pretty cool.
Yeah, I really enjoyed that.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, I've seen that a lot.
Well, yeah, or for you, absolutely, yeah.
But you know, it is fun, you know, and then sometimes you hear back from them like, oh, I've got a pair going now. I'm like, oh yeah, those are cool, you know. So
Yeah, that's very awesome.
yeah.
So Dean, what is that? What's that little doohickey you have there?
So this is, you know, technically it's a water sterilizer. It works on electrolysis.
So it looks like, to describe to folks, it looks just like a CO2 diffuser.
Similar.
It looks, I mean, so if you were to show that to somebody, I feel like the first thing they would guess is a CO2 diffuser or some type of new air stone.
Right.
It's got a suction cup in the back. It's a white ring
Right.
mesh screen on top, suction cup, and then there's a wire that could be mistaken for airline tubing,
Right.
but it is a power
source.
power
right.
source, yeah. And so what does that do?
So what inspired me was more than what it does. So, you know, Jimmy from the co-op, he's posting on his own channel and
Swisky, shout out.
Swisky, yeah.
Swisky, or is
Swisky
the
Vision or
H
something like-
silent? I thought the H was silent.
I don't know. Jimmy, you know.
Jimmy's channel, yeah.
So, so he had done a video of one of his tanks where there's a company out there called Twin Star that makes these for aquarium. I believe it's a UK company. I don't think it's a US company. And he was showing it come on, and it shoots out a bunch of super micro bubbles. And I'm like, wow, that's expensive, Jimmy.
What do they run? What's their retail?
Well, let's see. I think it's around $100 to $120, something.
Wow.
And, you know, upon seeing that, I Googled the thing, right? And then, of course, there's all sorts of YouTube videos about people that had made them. And they've made them out of, you know, different types of screen canisters. And I'm like, none of them look good. So, you know, again, being stuck here at home, I'm looking at, okay, can I make one?
Your creative DIY
You know.
juices are just flowing.
Right. So I made one, and I plug it in, and it worked.
Electrified everything in your tank.
Yeah. But it's plugged into like 6 or 12 volts DC, so you stick your hand in the water, you could feel a little tiny tickle, but it's not supposed to run all the time. It comes on and comes off. The advantages, and the part that I don't have or I haven't figured out yet, is the timer. It's got to run so many times in an hour. So I only did it on a challenge so I could show Jimmy. That was the whole premise of doing it.
So what is sterilization of the water? Is it
So
on par with a UV sterilizer, or is it getting different things? Like what's
kind of different? What this does, they call it an algae inhibitor or a water sterilizer.
Okay.
So it generates from the water. You get hydrogen and oxygen separately. So it works on electrolysis, and the bubbles are hydrogen and oxygen.
So it breaks the bonds.
It breaks down the single cell algae.
Okay.
So that they can't form. So it's not going to do anything for black brush algae and stuff like that. But the small algae that normally affects your plants and your glass, it breaks that down so it can't form.
Huh. And so what did you Frankenstein to make this thing? Like what are we looking at here?
So it's 2 pieces of stainless steel screen. They're about 1/4 inch apart. One is hooked to positive, one's hooked to negative on a DC.
Now, is that just generic stainless steel screen, or is that from like the cooking industry, like the
No,
culinary?
you could buy a strainer,
Okay.
a stainless steel strainer. I just happen to have some that I used to grow moss on.
Okay.
So I cut the discs, and
What were the discs?
I cut them out of a square screen.
No, oh, I'm sorry. Oh, I thought you meant the
same-
white. I thought you meant the white outer plastic.
The white is this was a PVC fitting of some sort. I don't even remember which. The screen dropped in. I put another PVC spacer inside,
Okay.
and then it's another PVC glued on.
I
So
want
it's
to
sandwich.
I want to make you a PVC crown.
Yeah,
Like you are
exactly.
the king of PVC. It's awesome what you can make.
And then obviously you got to solder the wire to the screen on both sides, and the suction cup.
Okay, and so what is the electricity running to? It's just running to the
the
metal,
screen,
It's
to both
running to
sides
the
of the
metal
screen.
So it's just a positive negative wire
Yep.
touching the screen.
One to one side, one to the other side.
What the heck?
Yeah.
Okay, and then this is nuts. And then you plug this thing in. Now your adapter looks like
It's something I found.
that looks like the old school mouse and
Similar.
before we went to USB, whatever that connector was.
But that's just your normal power supply adapter.
You could just hook this up to the old school mechanical timers, because they have that whole pinwheel.
Yes.
And that would probably be like the easiest.
But it needs to only run for about a minute
oh, okay.
to a minute and a half.
These are at least like 5-minute chunks.
Yeah,
Those little.
yeah, that would be too long, I think. But a minute to a minute and a half every 15, 20 minutes.
And so for the $150, $200 when you buy it
get
from the other
the timer.
company, okay,
Yeah,
that's
so
probably where all the cost is.
That's where the
then.
money is. It's not in this part.
Could you imagine? So with the Wi-Fi light timers and
Yes,
that we use,
I've already been
how
I've been
disgusting
searching.
that would look. Like if you tried to do 1 to 2 minutes every what?
Well, what you need is you need a timer. Like Jimmy sent me an email because I had him time his. He says it runs for, I think he said 1 minute and 16 seconds every 16 minutes.
Do they adjust it for gallonage?
By size of tank.
Okay.
Yeah. So you'd have to figure that part out too. But so in my case, I'm still just playing with it because, I mean, like I showed you the tank earlier with the pipes that I wrapped. You know, when you got time on your hands, you can play with a lot of stuff.
I think one of the best things about it kind of inherently is what it is, but your Tabletop Tuesday series that you do with Corey, just letting people see how creative you can get in this hobby. And actually last night as I'm working in the fish room, working on my siphon system, like a good portion of the fun of this is just thinking creative, thinking outside of the box,
Right.
Taking a lot of inspiration and when I try to emulate you, you're going to get me about 80% of the way, right? You're going to get me 80% of the way, and then that last 20%, I need to customize for my application. I need to customize
yourself,
for what I've done, right?
Yeah. Or maybe your need is not exactly like mine. It might need a little bit different. So yeah, you're right.
Clean tanks and breeding wild or discus. That's exactly actually what I need to do. But you run a 20 long for your fry tray system, right?
Right.
I had a 40 breeder that I could utilize, and
Right.
so using bigger tanks and just applying it for what I have available and my particular space and how I've run my water system. But so much of it is already based on the knowledge that I've gleaned from you, and then just adapting it here or there so that it works for me.
Right.
And I would love to see you on your siphon drain system. I would love to see you get that on-off on there, that ball valve. I'll be like, Dean, yes, I gave Dean that
Then you wouldn't have to
inspiration.
squeeze the stupid hose, right?
You know what I saw in the background of one of the co-op videos was Corey had the Zis hanging, like how I had my fish
I made
room.
those. Oh, you didn't? Did you see those in mine?
No. Well, with the Zis hatchers, or
Yeah, I have 2 of them running down there now.
when did you do it?
When I first got them.
Really?
When I first showed Corey that they're going to hang on a tank in that video,
Okay.
I said we need to make some hangers. So I made one for Corey, one for my room.
Okay, maybe that was the inspiration then, and I went ahead and made them. So I hadn't seen that you'd done that yet, but I know you were the reason why we revisited them.
Right.
Because you were like, this thing's great. On its base, they call it the Artemia blender, which I've asked Zis, I'm like, hey man, anytime you want help on like naming or branding, or you're converting things over into English, like this guy's my Korean cousin at this point.
Right.
I love him. But like, let me know. Just let me know.
Yeah.
And so with the brine shrimp hatcher, he never hit me up, and he produces the name Artemia blender, and it's like sure it looks like a blender, but that's
kind of.
Yeah, that's kind of a rough name, but
And see, I would like a company like that say, okay, send me the prototype before you finish it.
Yeah.
Because then I will give you the tweaks to do to make it perfect.
Yeah. I mean, that's what we're trying to do. Like, really, granted, right now everybody's in stasis hold right now, and we're all just kind of holding our breath, figuratively and literally. Which I want to make a meme of when you walk by somebody in the grocery store, you hold your breath. You're like, like you try to.
I mean, now I go to the grocery store, people just turn away from you.
Oh, jeez.
If you really want to go buy bread or toilet paper, just walk down that aisle and cough.
Well, one, you can't buy toilet paper.
I know.
Because everybody's awesome and thinks that they need 17 packs of toilet paper.
Yeah.
The other thing I did learn, shout out to Neil Clark over in the UK, our buddy Neil.
Yeah.
Is that apparently in the UK they call it bog paper?
Right.
Bog roll?
Right, bog roll.
I'm like, man, if I learned anything during coronavirus is that across the pond they call it bog roll.
Exactly.
Which is kind of a funny name. But yes, exactly that point of, hey, like we have some really good collective experience and feedback to give you on your products as you develop them. Like there's been numerous companies that we've reached out to for this, and it's they always bring us in after the molds are cast. They always bring us in after it's kind of the finished product, and it's like, it's gonna be way too much money to go back and redo this.
Exactly.
Where you take the product of the Aquarium Co-op sponge filter, right? That was fully in our control to say, this is how we want the foam. We don't want the ridges. We want it coarse. We want it this. We want it that. And there were numerous, like nobody will ever see this, but the communication between me and the manufacturer going back and forth on this is how we want it, and them saying, are you sure?
Yeah.
Are you sure that's how you want it? It's not gonna, like, no, like this is how we want it. And they keep trying to tell you, what other customers are buying, and as politely as possible. It's, well, we're not trying to do what your other customers are doing. We're trying to make something better. We're trying to improve it. We're trying to take the best of this and the best of that, and just finally be the people that deliver the product that we want to give to the public. Now, the sponge filter, there is, I think, one more tweak that we can do on the internals. That we've got our next resupply will be the current style, but I think we will work on that one last little tweak that will take it from being like 99% awesome to like 100% awesome.
Right.
And you're going to be very heavily involved with that. But exactly like with Zis, and hopefully we continue to build the relationship where, hey man, this kind of stuff, like make sure we're on there at the ground floor, because we can sell this stuff, and we can sell it because we're going to make it the best out there, and it may cost a little bit more, but people, as long as the economy stays nice and robust, are willing to pay a little bit more for a premium product that's going to get rid of all the annoying features and things that they don't like. Because the moment you start having all of these like minor annoyances, people don't want to use it. They'll stop using it. So going back to my dislike of the brine shrimp hatcher sitting on its base, you have to squeeze your hand underneath it. And people, you can buy this thing on eBay right now. We're not carrying it, but it's a fantastic product. You can find it on eBay. It's the 2000. Shout out to Zis. I love them. So please buy it on eBay if you'd like. But like you have to crane your hand underneath there.
Right.
And it's just
You can't fit your hand underneath.
And I was running the air through the top, right? Where one, the moment you start hanging it, and two, the moment you start running the air through the bottom, through the outlet, right? The drain, like it's a completely different product, and I fell in love with it.
Yep.
And it just makes brine shrimp hatching, so much easier. It stops being a chore, and it just kind of becomes less a chore. It's not exactly an activity of joy, but it's not like this, crap, I have to do this thing.
But it is a necessity of a fisherman.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So,
100%.
That's actually probably your biggest obstacle in breeding fish is supplying the babies food. So, if they're tiny babies, you need to figure out how to do paramecium or green water. Other babies, you need to know how to do brine shrimp.
Yeah.
A lot of people will also use microworms and vinegar eels. But if you've mastered the brine shrimp, you can really skip those.
I've got 2 cultures in my laundry room closet that full of vinegar worms, and I think I've only ever tried to feed it out once, and maybe I just don't have the right species that I'm currently working with that really need that. But just being able to go straight to baby brine shrimp, and the next thing that really made baby brine shrimp for me so much easier was just doing the pre-mixed salt.
Right.
So shout out to Fritz. You get that big bucket of Fritz RPM salt, 2 tablespoons of that in the Zis hatcher. Throw in and you can actually vary the amount of eggs. So depending on what I'm trying to feed, I could do half a tablespoon or half a teaspoon.
Half a teaspoon.
And then Corey goes crazy. He's like, I just do a full tablespoon.
Right.
I'm like, dude, that's so much. And you don't have to adjust the salt. You can go full tablespoon, go crazy.
Right.
And you will have so much baby brine shrimp.
Right.
I haven't tried to push it beyond a tablespoon, but I've been at a point where I was like, all right, a teaspoon of eggs.
That's a lot of eggs.
Is a lot, right?
Yeah.
And I'm feeding everything. I'm feeding like the guppies that I just breed for giggles because my kids like to just see all these fish swimming in there.
Right.
I've got so much left over. I'm giving these guys like a full, small little like, what's the scoop? It's like it's 1/8 of a teaspoon, full of brine shrimp. Right. That's a lot. I've got so much left over that basically every tank can get it. The angel fry can get their fill, right? Everything that needs it is going to get their fill to excess, basically. I can even give some to bristlenose fry, right? So they can munch on some of that, and then just enough to give to everything else in the fish room, and then enough to even take into the house and give it to the display tank.
Yeah. And I always do that. I always give my pairs of rams, pairs of apistos, any leftover. But I also think that also lets them know for spawning activity that there is fry food available for if they spawn.
Yeah.
Might sound weird, but works for me.
Yeah, no, I mean that's just one of those things that just makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like excess of live delicious food. Like we can actually pack on some more weight and let's do this. Let's have some kids.
Yeah.
So actually, what was it, 2 nights ago? So I should be harvesting it in a couple hours when I actually go home. But I refired up the brine shrimp. I'd actually done kind of a hiatus. The angels kind of cooled down a little bit on their babies. So I probably went about a month and a half, 2 months without hatching brine shrimp. But as I'm increasing tank capacity and like this new Killy species and Cory species that I'm not even working with at this time, I've got the tank space. So I pulled mops of the Bosemani rainbow, so Melatonea bosemani, and I pulled a mop of Chilorthena fasciata, the ungulum that I got from Gary Lang when he came to visit. So I've got fry from both of those mops, which had been in those tanks for months and months.
So you got tons of fry.
Babies are just hatching every day. Parents are crushing them. And that Chilorthena, man, that guy was so mad. He was even so the video I sent you last night, that was 2 days after I pulled him up. He's still mad at me. He had never done that before.
See, whenever I do that, when I pull him up, I put a new one in.
And I did, but there was a good couple hours before I did that.
He's still mad.
He was furious.
I want you to put your finger in there and see what happens.
I almost did, but he was so mad though. I sent you the video. Dude, he'd never done that before. And I had messed with that tank. I'd moved plants around in there. I mean, never had I ever gotten that reaction
Right.
from that male. And these guys, I mean, they fire up iridescent purple,
Super cool,
metallic.
yeah.
They are a beautiful, beautiful fish.
Right.
So that's actually one where and I think it probably would technically could fall under a cares category, like the
Probably.
Bosemani, yeah.
Yeah, a lot of rainbows can nowadays.
Yeah, so fire those up, and I've got brine shrimp down to a science now where I can just make it every single day.
Yep.
Try to grow those fry up as fast as possible, and just try to get them out there, so people can enjoy these fish as well. Because aside from when you pull their mop, they're a pretty peaceful fish.
Pretty much. Yeah.
Go really well in a planted tank. Seeing the males fire up is. I mean, they spar like
They spar,
it's like barely a spar.
Right,
Yeah.
right,
It's
yeah.
just like it's more just showmanship, and they're so
Yeah.
beautiful.
It's not like they're sparring to hurt each other. They're just sparring to.
Yeah. Yeah, before I was relying when I was doing rainbows a little bit too much on golden pearls and then like crushed flake.
Right.
And I was only doing like maybe brine once a week just because it wasn't easy.
Right.
I didn't have it down.
Right.
And so now that's a different story. Now I can just kick out the brine shrimp no problem.
Yep.
And hopefully have some more have much better growth rates out of them. But rainbows are still pretty slow.
Pretty slow at growing, actually.
Yeah.
Yeah. But when the key with that is if you get the cories going, you can grow them together. Mm-hmm. Same with plecos. Plecos would be great in the bottom of a rainbow fish fry tank.
So I had, actually I had panda cories in a main display tank, the 75 before I moved it and replanted it. But the cories would spawn like crazy in the dwarf sag, and the rainbow fish were up above, and I think they were kind of mutually picking off each other's eggs
Sure.
and whatnot.
Yeah,
but
sure they were.
They did do well for the most part. And every once in a while I'd see
Yep.
new panda cories in that tank.
Yeah, because every so often an egg will fall down into the gravel or whatever and it'll hatch and somehow survive.
Yeah, but definitely maximizing the the growing out, like of maximizing that. Rainbows are going to stay at the top. The top half.
Cories
will stay on the bottom.
Yeah.
Grow them all out. Everybody's going to be happy. Hunky dory.
Yeah, that makes it easy. I mean, plus it gives you, okay, this 20-gallon tank is not just for cories.
Yeah.
Right. It's for growing the rainbows too. Mm-hmm. I imagine you could do a third. I mean, you could probably put the baby bristlenose in there too.
Yeah, I would think so.
They would probably all get along just fine.
Yeah. Yeah. Right now with the mops, I've actually got them separate. So I set up a 5-gallon, not on the auto water change system, but I set up a 5-gallon. Took a piece of matten filter foam and just kind of shoved it in there, so it's all bent. It doesn't fit, but I didn't want to cut it.
It works.
It's for a 10-gallon,
Yeah.
and I put the Chillerthena mop on one side, the Bosemani on another, and I honestly think I'm just going to pull that center divide and just let them mix, because as they grow out, I'll be able to tell the different species and then pull them out.
Yeah.
And they're both, the Chillerthena and Bosemani are roughly the same size, so it's not like a
Right.
Praecox and a Bosemani.
Right.
So I don't know. I'm kind of torn right now. Right now they're separated.
I would not do that with rainbows.
Okay.
And why is because they're fast when you want to try to catch them later to sort them. I mean, if you were going to do like say guppies and platies, that could work. Mm-hmm. I used to do the Praecox rainbows and rams together, and that was easy. But two rainbows, trying to catch the two different ones, I think would be tough.
Yeah, just drain the water quite a bit.
Yeah, you could, but you still have to sort them.
Yeah.
And they are fast.
Mm-hmm.
So, but that's actually what a lot of fish farms do.
Yeah.
They drain the water down to where they can just net everything in there.
And I'm fairly certain that between the genus of rainbows, they can't interbreed.
I don't think they would.
Yeah, it's just within like, you couldn't put Melatonea praecox with Melatonea bosemani.
Right.
They would.
That would
Yeah,
not
you
work.
would get the mutts,
Yeah.
and Gary Lang would hunt you down, like all these rainbow guys.
Exactly. Why are you doing that? Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, they're not a fan of that.
Yeah.
So what else, Dean? What else? Any other major updates planned? Any update renovations?
No real renovations. Just keeping after the fish, keeping them happy. Trying to keep myself fed. That's a challenge right now.
And hygienically sanitary with the toilet paper shortage.
Well,
right?
and the whole toilet paper shortage. I'm wondering that's going to bite some manufacturers in the butt at some point, because at some point, everybody in your neighborhood's going to
Yeah.
have a year's supply of toilet paper. And then when all of this is over, they're going to go to the store and there's going to be bazillions of toilet paper and no one's buying it and it'll sit there and mold. Toilet paper doesn't mold, does it?
I don't know, man. Maybe if you're
What-
like in
what
a
about that
really
stuff in the
humid
UK?
climate, I think the bog roll's already molded. That's why they call it bog roll.
So, you just got to, take care of things. No new major fish coming in that I can think of right now.
What do you have your eye on right now? What's the next fish you're like, man, I'd like to get that in the fish room?
Well, there is a fish I want to do. I've done it before. I want to do it again. And I want to do it so that I can either film it or take pictures of it. And that is some
Paradise fish.
Pelvichromis.
Pelvichromis. Dean loves the paradise fish.
No, not the paradise fish. I also am kind of on the lookout for a female. What do you guys call them? The Nemo bettas. It's the koi betta that's the Nemo colors.
There's I feel like 30 different new fancy terms
Yeah,
have come out.
I have a really nice male. I had at one point got a female, lost that female, and that was a spawning project that I wanted to do.
That's something at some point, I talked with Corey about this recently, that I had asked him, hey, have you ever done bettas? And he hadn't done bettas yet at all. And he's like, yeah, it's one of the things I'm kind of meaning to do. I think at some point I'll have to try my hand at bettas.
Yeah.
One, because pretty much anything you breed, you will be able to sell, right? So hopefully you should be stuck with them. But just to say that you've done it,
yeah. But at the same point, I've talked about this on Corey's channel a couple times about one of the first things I ever took to Corey's store was like 200 baby bettas.
Oh, jeez.
And we put them on special. He sat on it was like 6 months. That's a lot. Because in America, I hate to say it, we don't have enough space to jar that many bettas to grow them up. And at a certain age, you have to jar them up or they're just going to tear each other apart.
Yeah. Or the what I've seen of the farms overseas, it's just, they're in relatively rural areas or on the outskirts of a major city, and they just have flat pieces of concrete or whatever it is, and they've got hundreds of jars, hundreds of 1 liter plastic bottles cut 3/4 of the way up with a tarp over it and all that stuff. So they've got just a full on operation to do that. And I think the best that we try to do of breeders that are sharing what they do is just try to go vertical. Try to go vertical with like a rack system, but even then, if you've just got,
it's only so much you can put on it.
Yeah, you basically take the footprint of a normal home and take that as a concrete pad, and you've got nothing but thousands of cut open soda bottles to grow your bettas in.
Right. I remember seeing one where it was I think they were using Coke bottles, and there was so many that they literally, to feed them, they would walk on top of the bottles.
Oh, jeez.
Because
that's crazy.
They had big flat shoes that they were wearing, but they could literally walk on top of the bottles and feed them.
Well, I thought what was so great about, and I'm sorry I can't shout out whoever put this video out, but I think he was in Thailand. I think he was in Bangkok. And he basically hops on the moped with the guy that owns like 2 betta farms.
Oh, yeah, I saw that video.
And I love the fact that as they're headed into the first farm, they stop at like the local Daphnia seller.
Right.
Like, how legit would that
How
be?
cool
Like,
would
hey,
that be?
Bob, my Daphnia guy. He just
we
hooks
need
you
that.
up, right?
And the thing is, it's right beside the road.
Yep.
He's just driving. Yeah, okay, we're gonna stop there.
I think he might have been next to like one of their traditional breakfast stands. You
Could
get
have
your
been.
breakfast, you get your Daphnia, you head into work.
Yep.
That would be so awesome.
Yeah.
But I guess they do that. They do that in Germany, right? Those stores that Corey and Joel
A lot
went
of them
to.
do, yeah.
Yeah, they have like the daily deliveries of live bagged foods, which
Yep.
it's like, man, that's pretty darn convenient.
I think part of it is because in America, you never know if you're going to sell that all out. Like it's the same with the prepackaged fish in the fish markets. They're already in a bag. You just okay, I want this bag. Can you imagine Aquarium Co-op having a rack of just bags of fish already caught?
The hobby here would be so incredibly strong. It would just be amazing if we got to the point where Americans,
would buy that way.
They just knew what they wanted. They would buy that way, and like the husbandry at home is probably so dialed in that they feel comfortable and they can do that.
Right.
Like that would just be, we've got a ways to go, but that would just be an awesome place. Because then, if we were that way, because in China you walk down those market streets and there's bloodworms. There's live bloodworms just fully open, like out in the space, sitting on their newspaper, and you just get your scoops. You just get your scoops of fresh bloodworms.
Right.
And I could, oh man.
And you've got a bag of fish, and you just go home.
Yeah, just having the aquatics that ingrained in the culture is like, man,
I wish we could. Cool.
I wish we could do that.
Yeah.
Hopefully we get to that point.
Someday, maybe.
Yeah.
I think a lot of it is we're too used to selection, having too many choices. So okay, I want that one neon tetra.
That guy, that one right there.
Here's a bag of 5 for the same price, but I just want that one. We're too used to selection, I think, is what does it.
Did they do at those markets? I'm trying to think of the video. Did they have like schooling fish in the bags ready to rock and roll, or were they all like single angels and discus and goldfish?
I would guess it would depend. I bet that you could buy any fish pre-bagged.
I'm trying to remember that. I should probably go back through the videos and just see if they had like a bag of 10 neons ready to rock and roll.
Yeah.
I don't know.
Or a school of pencil fish or something like that.
Right.
There's lots of bags of fish though, and it probably depends on which market or stand you went to.
You know what made me cringe? Looking on Amazon, they now have, or maybe they've had them for a while. So the whole air plant craze, and I don't know if you can even call it that, but if you picture the little dome glass thing that mounts to a wall, they're now advertising those for fish. And so how they show it is like some pothos in there and a betta, right? Yes. And this can't be any more than a liter. Probably
I would
less.
Say maybe a liter. Yeah.
Like a half a gallon, somewhere around there. Like I'm terrible on my liquid conversions.
And it goes on the wall.
And it's like, all right, the betta, okay, I could kind of see that maybe. And then some of the images, goldfish.
Right.
Like, come on. Like we went from already like the bowl.
Right.
And now we're trying to sell people on
a bulb, something they hang on the wall like a picture. With a goldfish in it.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't think that's right.
This is, and I think currently it's got like 3 stars.
Yeah.
I don't know, but that's just like that. Come on, and because that's the kind of stuff that's going to get animal activists and PETA and all these other people that already want to shut down the hobby, right? Yeah. They hate the idea of captive animals. You go and you do that, right? You go and you advertise the most inhumane possible living condition for a creature like that,
right? And
you're going to put it on Amazon. Like you're just putting a target on our back.
To the general public that doesn't know better.
Yep.
Right? So
and hope, but I liked seeing that Costco at Christmas time was carrying the hydroponic betta set.
Yeah, that was kind of cool.
I thought that was pretty cool because that's at least 2-3 gallons.
It was a couple. Yeah, it was 2 or 3 gallons. It was big enough.
Filtration system. You get your microgreens, your herbs up on top. Like that seemed pretty decent. Now, the huge danger with that would obviously be people like, oh, there's plants. That's cleaning the water. They never do water changes. They never service it, and the betta is just going to live in this terrible environment. Who knows? Maybe the greens that you plant do an amazing job of pulling out all the nitrates and ammonia and all that stuff. But I've never done the test. I don't know. But
the bad example of that is going to happen no matter what, because there's always someone that says, oh, I don't have to do anything. Mm-hmm. To each bad example, there's probably 10 good examples. Yeah. Or more.
Yeah. And that's the let's try to make everything as easy as possible, but let's make sure it still maintains the husbandry practices, right?
Right.
I learned, within the first few months that an auto water change system, because I'm doing about 20% every day, depending on the stocking, does not mean that you can get away with not gravel vacuuming and not, running more biological filtration. Just because you're changing water every single day, there's still a certain amount of actual hands-on husbandry that you need to practice.
Yeah, you still have to clean the filters and stuff like that. You will find, and I've done this in the past where, okay, it's auto water changing, I don't have to do anything. And then you go in, and I hardly ever test my water, parameters.
Sure.
But if something goes wrong, it's like, oh man, this is like pH 5. So the fish aren't dying, they're not thriving, they're not dying, but if I'm to change that out with my tap water is 8.6.
Your tap is 8.6
Yeah,
here?
it runs between 8.2 and 8.6.
Why so high?
They put buffers in it
Really?
to keep the pipes from rotting.
Interesting.
Yeah, City of Bellevue does that.
Huh.
So, it settles in the aquarium at about 7.6.
Okay, because I'm pretty sure I'm at like 7.
Yeah,
Maybe a touch
should
under
be,
7.
You
Yeah.
should be around 7 where you're at, yeah. Because we draw from the same watershed.
Just delicious, delicious straight from the tap water. I love our water.
So
I need to try your tap water now. I want to taste it and see.
it tastes the same.
Does it?
Yeah,
Okay.
it tastes the same. It's the same watershed. They just add chemicals. I think it's soda ash and lime to buffer the water so that it doesn't rot the pipes.
Dude, the ultimate fish nerd move for you is to run for the Bellevue Water Council. Like,
I
get
know.
on that board, dude. How hilarious would that be if you are so passionate about your hobby and your breeding that you actually run for a spot on your municipality's water board? That would be amazing.
But you contrast that with when Kelly was up in Vancouver, big projects up there would be repiping. They called it repiping because they pretty much have the same water. It comes out of their tap about 6 pH.
Wow.
And all of their pipes rot.
Huh.
Even the plastic. So a big business up there is, repiping buildings or repiping your whole house with new pipe.
That's crazy.
And it happens about every 10, 15 years.
So where I live, is there like a happy medium, I guess, where they're putting just enough to keep my pipes from rotting, but not as much where my pH is
probably
Lake Tanganyika, like you?
Or there might be other chemicals in the water here that they don't have up there.
I mean, I feel people will probably freak out at this, but I feel so comfortable with my tap water. I don't even I do run a carbon block and a sediment filter, but I will do water changes just with straight tap water.
Yep, I do that.
And not use dechlorinator.
I've actually tested my chlorine level. It's almost undetectable.
Yeah. Yep.
And we don't have chloramine. We're lucky that way. So it's literally undetectable. But I do the same thing on my auto water change. I run a sediment and a carbon block.
Well, I do the same thing because I copied you.
Mostly just to catch the little stuff. You know.
I did an annual change. I did mine in last July. I did my 1-year change on my sediment, my carbon block.
Oh, mine.
How often do you change yours?
I do mine about every 3 months.
Really? Because you've got the pressure gauge, so when you notice your pressure drop.
I can definitely see the pressure drop.
Okay.
And if I go 4 months, I'm like, I don't have any pressure.
Yeah.
So when I go, and it'll still be doing water changes, but because there's no pressure, I'm not getting the full advantage of the amount of water that I want to be putting in there to change. So.
Well, Dean, this has been an awesome conversation, man. This is. I'm just trying to think right now, what the title of this would be, and would it be just coffee conversation with Dean? Actually, no, a lot of people are saying their stuff is coffee talks.
And I don't drink coffee.
This is just you don't drink coffee?
No.
Oh, Dean.
Or tea.
You're not.
Or anything hot.
You mean you could just wake up?
Yeah.
And not need any stimulant?
Yeah, I mean, you knocked on my door. What was I, getting dressed?
Well, you showed up dressed, so
that's true.
I did bring in your recycle can though.
That's true.
So, and I had to move the garbage over. I didn't want to block that from the garbage man. But Dean, man, this has been fantastic. It's always a pleasure to talk with you and to try to glean as much information from you as I can. And yeah, man, you were. It'd be like, I think I was gonna do a selfie with you and have some type of caption where it's Anakin and Obi-Wan, but without the cutting in half. Or
there you go.
Like that, right? All right, Dean. Well, thank you very much, man. I hope everybody enjoyed this.
You bet. Have a good day.